Let's talk about task number 4 and number 5. These are the reach mends, left and right. 4 is left, right is number 5. The reach mend, I think, is one of the most important casts a person can learn if they're going to go trout fishing. I guide about 250 people to 300 people a year, and I guarantee there's probably only a couple of dozen who can actually reach mend, and it costs them a lot of fish because they can't reach mend. I would hope that as a CI, when you have somebody come to you who says, I'm going to go fishing in Montana, once they get their basic loops done, I would say the reach mend is the next most important cast. Roll cast, basic loops, and a reach mend. After that, there's some options. Even the double haul is not as important for a person who's just going to be doing some trout fishing in a river where they're making casts 40 or 50 feet at a maximum. So think about the reach mend. Think about the fact that as a CI, I think the CI's primary responsibility is to teach people how to fish better, and a reach mend is important. So this summer of 2018, I hope to do some reach mending actually on the water and put it up on a video so you can see it. But in the meantime, I'm just going to have to sort of do the best I can to describe it. If you haven't done it, you need to go do it so you understand all the nuances, and there's a lot of nuances in this. But the basic cast is all you have to do to pass tasks 4 and 5. So we've got a current coming from my right or your left across, and we've got a fish sitting over there at that red cone closest to you. We need to, and that fish, let's say this current in the middle is faster and that fish at slower water, we're going to reach to the right so that the faster water takes up this line and doesn't move our fly. So the purpose of a reach mend, and I don't want to get into it too much, we're just going to mostly work on the mechanics, but the purpose of a reach mend is to allow for a drag-free drift of a fly in water that's a different speed than the water between you and the fish. It can be a downstream. There's plenty of opportunities for downstream reach mends too. So not every reach mend is upstream. If you're a CI candidate and you tell me, well, you always reach mend upstream, then I know you haven't fished very much. So you're going to reach mend downstream in a couple of different cases, and hopefully this summer we'll be able to show you that. But let's talk about the mechanics of a reach mend. First off, you want to make sure that you're aiming at your target. Now you can reach mend off shoulder, you can reach mend off this shoulder, you can reach mend side armed, but let's just for today, we're going to do pretty vertical. We're going to do a reach mend that's fairly vertical. And the reason we're going to do that is again, you're going to start with your line down, rod tip down, line straight, and you're going to nice pickup and then nice loops. And by the way, loops from the front don't look very good, so don't be biased by these weird looking loops. You'll see me do it again from the side. So these loops aren't going to look good, but what I'm going to do is I'm doing this. And then when I get ready to reach, I stop. And when I stop, this is one of the secrets of being able to do this. There's 2 secrets to do this without having to look like you're rushed and dragging the fly. One of the prohibitions in this task is you can't drag your fly. Once it hits, it's supposed to stay stopped. It can't stop and then drag. So 2 things, well 3 things really. 1, you can move a little bit slower. So you want to have a nice slow forward cast. The second thing, and you're going to see this from the side in a minute, you want as level a trajectory as you can get. And if you have a level trajectory like this, instead of like this, you're going to give you more time to make your reach. And the last thing is, and from the front you can see this pretty well, you stop, you reach, and then you drop. If you stop and you do this, that's going to have a tendency to drag the fly and make everything faster. If you stop here, then you reach, and then you drop, you're going to have a lot better chance. So we're going to get through all the mechanics, but those are the high points, and I just really wanted to spend some time making sure that any CI candidate understands the importance of this cast in a real live fishing situation. This is not a trick cast. This is a fundamental, basic cast for anybody who wants to catch a lot of fish in a river stream situation. So let's do this first, and I just want you to watch the rod tip path and the tracking from the front, because you're going to get some examiners that are going to be looking at your tracking on all of these casts. So one of the themes we have over and over and over again is making sure your tracking is pretty good. If you're lifting your rod and then swinging it around like this, very much exaggerated, you're going to get dinged. You pretty much have to go back and forth in a straight line. So we're going to try to do that. The second thing we're going to do is show you the stop, and then the motion across, and then the motion down. And we'll worry about the line later, and we'll show you a lot of this stuff from the side. But here we go. So we're going to have a nice pickup, we're going to stop, we're going to reach to the right, and then down. So I need to get a little more level if I want to have time. There we go. Now I've gotten more level. My line is not going down, it's going parallel to the ground. Now here we go. Next one. Stop, reach, and drop. Now, I don't know if you can see that or not, but that fly landed 2 inches from the 30-foot cone, which we're going to describe in just a second. My rod is way past 45 degrees, which was what the other prohibition is. You're supposed to be at least 45. This is probably at 85 degrees, and the line is perfectly straight with a straight leader and the fly landing at 30 feet. So you'll notice that wasn't slowed down at all. That was full speed, and you can see how slowly I did it. So let's watch again. Here we go. Get myself perpendicular or parallel to the ground. Give myself more time. Watch how slowly I do this. Same thing, this time the fly hit 1.5 feet to the left of the 30-foot cone. So that's exactly what you want to do. Now we're going to go into the mechanics of it from the other angle so you can see it, but this is an important consideration, is the idea that you can see how far up my rod is when I stop. Way up here. My rod's here. That gives me tons of time to reach. So I've made my trajectory level here. So now let's get my tracking down, because that was probably bad. Here's my tracking. Nice level tracking. Stop, reach, and drop. Stop, reach, and drop. And I would suggest you just practice this. Just pick it up, cast it, reach, and drop. Get used to reaching first and then dropping. Reach and then drop. That's a big, big important factor in being able to lay this line down. And make sure your target, you'll notice my target is the 30-foot cone. So I'm aiming right at the 30-foot cone. This is just like accuracy almost. So I'm aiming at the 30-foot cone. My rod tip, my line is going over the 30-foot cone. Nice and slow. Bingo, landed a foot away from the 30-foot cone. So that's what you're going to do. So let's take a look from the side and you can see some of this stuff from the side. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through the reach mend, and I'll do it to the right. I think you can probably see it better. Maybe I'll do it to the left too. But what I want to do is make sure we're emphasizing two things. Number one, good pickup and loops. Second thing, I really think a level trajectory is pretty important. And the next thing is slow. And then stop and reach and then drop. So you should see me stop. You should see my rod moving and then dropping. At least it may not be this and this. It may be this and this, but it's still mostly sideways and then down. And then we'll have to just zoom in a little bit, but you'll have to take my word for where the line is hitting. Let's start, just show you this task holistically and go through the different parts of it as I go through it. So first thing we're going to do is, I've got a lot of slack in the line, so the first thing we're going to do is reset our line. Landed almost on a 40-foot cone, so we're right there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make our pickup, nice pickup, good loops, try to get as parallel as we can, try to slow down, and then do the reach mend. I'm going to do reach mend left, so I'm a little bit left of the cone. So here we go. Try to get parallel, good loops. Now I'm going to get ready to go. Next cast I'm going to do it. Now you'll notice, if you watch that one, watch that compared to the next one as far as well, that time I just kind of did a Z down, just down at this angle. Watch the next one. The next one's going to be right. Now watch the difference in my rod tip. You can go back and play that again. So this time what I did is I stopped and I reached and then I dropped. Stop, reach, and then drop. So you're stopping, you're reaching, and then you're dropping. And what happens is everything gets really straight and then drops straight down. So you're going to stop, reach, and then drop. And try to get you'll notice my casting arc is tilted so that it's fairly even with the ground. The bottom leg, the loops are even with the ground. Perfect, right there. And nice and slow and relaxed. You're not worried about loops right now, you're just worried about getting this idea from here to here. Just do it 100, just pick it up and do it. Pick it up and do it till this just becomes automatic. And you're going to see in a second why this isn't going to screw up your muscle memory. Believe me, this will not hurt your pickup, it won't hurt your loops, it won't hurt anything. All you're doing is getting what would normally be, if you come out and practice, and you practice this drill holistically 15 times. You've done this 15 times. I can do this 15 times in a minute. Just this part of the drill 15 times in a minute. It's much more efficient to break things down and do a ton of repetitions. This is a particular skill. Stop, reach, and down. Stop, reach, and down. Stop, reach, and down. So what we're going to do is a little drill that I do just to get a whole lot of repetitions at trying to hit the target. And again, most examiners are not that concerned about whether you're 2 or 3 feet. If you're 3 or 4 feet from this target, you're probably fine as long as everything else is really good. But what I like to do is just do a whole lot of repetitions trying to hit the target. Repetitions, the whole idea, the concept of repetitions is extremely important when you're training. I'm going to do a whole bunch of repetitions of pickups over and over and over again. I'm going to do lots of repetitions of 6 loops. I'm going to do tons of repetitions of just the motion of reaching. This one I'm going to do is, I'm not going to worry about the pickup or the loops. I'm just going to pick it up and then I'm just going to try to set it. We've zoomed the camera in, so all you're going to see is this area. You'll get an idea of how close I am, and I'm just going to do 10 repetitions. Bam, 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 and see if I can get within the field of vision of that camera. Just 10 straight times. That's my goal. So you can see what happened here is I just made a bunch of casts. I didn't really count them. It could have been more than 10 or fewer than 10. But anyway, I just made a whole bunch of casts, and virtually every one of them should have been within the sight of that camera lens, and most of them were within 2 or 3 feet of this cone. And just a whole lot of repetitions over and over and over and over again. Here's something about learning that's kind of an interesting phenomena. And it kind of, if you are so far away, remember you have this thing, most people call it muscle memory, and it's not actually muscle memory, but for argument's sake, let's just call it muscle memory. If you have a muscle memory for a pickup and false casting, and you're just so far away from that, you're not going to screw up your muscle memory. What screws up muscle memory is when you get really close to something. That's what's going to mess it up. If you're 90% there, that will upset your muscle memory. But here, I just picked it up. I don't care what kind of loop I have. I don't care about anything. It's just pick it up and cast. Pick it up and cast. Pick it up and cast over and over and over again. I'm not worried about anything. It's not going to mess up my muscle memory as far as the pickup and the false casting because it's too far. It's a whole different activity in terms of what your nerves and your brain and your muscles think. So don't worry about it. Just get lots and lots and lots of repetitions. Now what we're going to do is the second half of the task, both 4 and 5, is to slip line, and we're going to show you why we do that and how you do that. It still says casting 40 feet. So you're still going to cast 40 feet, which means if you're going to slip line, you now have your fly at 40 feet, you're going to strip off some line. I like to strip off about enough line that it actually hits my toes. So that's, let's say, 8 feet of line. So now I hold that in this finger, and you can see that pretty good even probably from that distance. Just hold it in your index finger. You can use this hand, but there's no sense really doing that because this is much cleaner and you don't have to worry about this hand. Now, reset your line. And all you're going to do is do the same false cast you just did, except for when you stop, you're just going to let go of the line and reach. And what your new target now is going to be 40 feet. The new target is at 40 feet because you've got 48 feet of line potentially out here, but you're going to take 8 feet of it back with the rod, and plus that 8 feet gives you 40 feet. So we're going to see how close we can get to the 40-foot cone right here. That's my new target. Same thing, I'm going to reach mend left, so I'm going to stand a little bit to the left of the cone. Get yourself parallel. Pretty good loops. So that landed at 38.5 feet. And I've got a 90-degree angle on here. Remember, it says 45, but you always want to get more than 45 if you can. There's no reason for you not to get out to, this is 45. This is 90, so somewhere in here is where you want to be at least. That way, there's no doubt about it in an examiner's mind. Okay, so pull it back. Nice and straight. 8 feet of slack. Oops, caught on the grass. Let's try it again. Make yourself nice and perpendicular, or parallel, I mean. Boom, there you go. Now, the question is, why do you slip line? And the most common answer that people give is, well, it gives you more distance. If you've done this very much at all, you know that the longer your line is, the less effective this cast is. You can't, if your line, you've only got an 8-foot rod. If you're aiming at a target 75 feet away, that doesn't create much of an angle at all. The shorter it is, the better the angle. So you're not, to me, shooting line is the least important of all the factors. The big one is, let's say we've got a fish. Look at that second, you can see that red cone right there, and I've just got my fly landed on it. So that's my fish, that's my target. If I take 50 feet of line out, and I start casting over that fish, that line's going over that fish is going to get spooked. I just put a bunch of fly line over that fish. The fish is going to get spooked and take off. So what I do is instead, I cast this much line, and then now what I do is I go to that fish. That's a much more efficient way of doing it. The other reason is, if that second cone to your left is the fish on the far bank, that fish is on the far bank and there's bushes behind it. If you're casting 50 feet of line, because remember, you have to cast 50 feet to hit a target at 40 feet, if you're casting 50 feet of line and you're going to hit those bushes behind it. A lot of times those fish are right on the bank. The only way I'm going to get to that fish is to cast a shorter amount of line and then slip line. So now I'm going to slip line. Now that line lands near the fish without having to spook it or hooking bushes and trees behind it. So that's the two biggest reasons you slip line. The biggest reason you slip line is not to get more distance. More distance in this particular cast is pretty much worthless. The best reach mend you can make is going to be at 20 and 30 feet. It's going to be by far the most effective, and we'll cover that this summer. There we go. That's the reach mend, and I think that's something I would spend a lot of time on.